because of a lack of discipline. Unrealized potential. I find it heartbreaking as someone who writes inspirationally and loves to inspire, motivate people, and I just hate to see people not reach their potential. And you know how you cannot reach your potential? Don't have good discipline. You don't have good discipline. You fail in discipline. Be disciplined. What else do you have to finish well? You have to have a learning attitude. You have to be a lifelong learner. In Galatians chapter 1 and verse 18, this is what Paul says. 3 years later, I went to visit Peter in Jerusalem and stayed with him for 15 days. Okay, what's that all about, Pastor Rick? No, it's important. It's very important because Paul becomes a follower of Christ and then he disappears for 3 years. 3 years, yeah, 3 years. What was he doing for 3 years? Learning. He was already a scholar, a Jewish scholar. Now he had to go and take all that he had learned and about the Messiah and now trace that Jesus was the Messiah and go through that whole process and learn and learn and learn. So a very brilliant intellectual man kept learning. Then he comes and visits Peter, and what does he do for 15 days? Learn. Talk to Peter, the leader of the church. Learn from him. Then we know, later in Acts, Paul goes back to his home area in Asia, where he was from, Tarsus, Cilicia, the region, Tarsus, the city, and he's gone for 10 years. Barnabas goes to get him and says, I need your help in Antioch. You've been gone for 10 years. We need your help. Come back here now. And then that's what launches Paul into his huge ministry, and that's when he goes from there. He's learning. To finish well, you have to have and maintain a positive learning attitude throughout your entire life. That's how you finish well. I was just listening to a podcast just this week, and the guy was saying, he was telling a story about this major CEO of one of the biggest Fortune 100 companies in the world who was retiring. And so they asked him what he was going to do, and he said, I'm going back to school. And so the person said, oh, that's great. You're going to go to one of the great business schools, and you're going to teach all these MBA students about how to be successful in business and how to run a major corporation. And he said, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. And the person said, what? Well, that's what you do, you know. He goes, no, I'm going back as an undergrad. And the person says, what do you mean you're going back? Oh, yeah, I want to go back and learn some new stuff. I've made my millions. I've run a major company, but I don't know it all. I need to learn more. Are you a learner? You need to be a lifelong learner. How do you learn? Well, reading's a good place to start, says the author of 7, soon to be 8 books. Might want to read. Yeah, but I like those streaming services, Pastor Rick. I really like Hulu, and I like Netflix. I like watching that stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to watch. In fact, you could watch and watch and watch and watch. Or you could watch less and read more. Just a suggestion. Something for you to consider today. Reading, learning, educating yourself. I was over at the Spurgeon Library Friday. Pastor Barry's wife, Rosemary, picked me up at the airport, and she said, would you like to visit with me, Pastor Rick? And I said, well, Rose, I'd really like to go to that Spurgeon Library. But afterwards, we could have lunch. Guess what? Charles Spurgeon never had a quote-unquote college education. Now, back then, his education in high school was very much like a college one. But how did he become this unbelievable guy that at one point he had written more words than anyone in history, more published words, because he was a voracious reader? And you can go right over to the Midwestern Library and his seminary, you can see all the books, some of his books, and there are a lot of them. Learning. How else can you learn? You can learn from other people. Why reinvent the wheel? Learn from others. Learn from their experiences. Learn from their mistakes. I love learning from other people's mistakes. How about you? Why repeat them? Learn from somebody. I believe in the power of positive example, but I believe in the power of a negative example. Just say, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Do that and do that. But don't do that. Good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story. Now I've learned what to do and what not to do. How else can you learn? Experience. If by experience you reflect on the experience, not have experiences, move on to the next experience and never really ponder or reflect on what happened. But if you ponder and reflect on it, allow God's Spirit to give you illumination, to open your eyes to see things, you can learn an awful lot about what to do, what not to do, what works, what doesn't work. Learning about yourself. Learning about who you are and just being able to just say, that's not me. There's two great words in the English language, yes and no. And sometimes you have to say no. Not mean, not being, here's how they say it in the South, ugly, ornery. You don't have to be that way. But you might just say, no, it's just not me. It's not a good use of my talents and time to do that. And then you may say, yes, oh yes, this is an opportunity that I want to take. This is something that I want to do. And those things can change in your life. In my ministry, I started a church, I pastored for 27 years, and then last year, after all those years, I left to start this new high impact living ministry. And one of the reasons I did that, was because God was leading me, and this has not been a part of my ministry for many years, but it is now, in writing devotions and God using those devotions to help a lot of people. And now, a new opportunity